Hello and welcome to Jen Lilley. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. This is one of my favorite subjects, so I'm very
I
happy to talk about it.
know. You were actually referred to me through a girlfriend in the business, and I know you're a very, very busy actress. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear you. You're so active as a philanthropist and a person who does a lot of charity work. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about your personal story because I know that you, like me, adopted two children through foster care in Los Angeles. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. And so tell me, how did you come to that? Was foster care something you were always interested in, or how did that come about for you?
I mean, always, always being since maybe I was about 9 years old, 7 or 9 years old. So almost always I've been interested
Wow.
in it. My parents were unofficial foster parents growing up. And so what I mean by that is my dad was a judge and my mom was a director of a women's center. And so they just weren't able to be foster parents because, as you may know or your listeners might know, but if anybody's new to foster care, if you are a foster parent, you are called and demanded to be unbiased. And so obviously, if you have a judge and a director of a crisis pregnancy center, it might look like you are cheating the system. And so they were not
Mhm.
unofficial, they were unofficial foster parents, meaning that because they were very charitable people, they still wanted to give back to kids and families who maybe just needed help transitioning through life. So we
Mhm.
often had people living with us that weren't part of our family. And so the whole concept of it was not scary to me. And then in 2011, when I was on The Artist, which was a movie, it was a silent movie in 2011, ended up being nominated for 10 Academy
Yeah,
Awards and it won Best Picture. And
that's
the only
right.
reason I say that is not, well, I'm very proud to be in it, but it's not like, ooh, Jen Lilley's so cool. It's to say this was a massive launch into becoming sort of on the road to a celebrity. And so I had to pick what I really wanted to voice my opinion on.
Mhm.
And for a long time, I had been an advocate, and I still think it's wonderful for the world water crisis. And what that is there are more people that die in the world every day than war, AIDS, and malaria combined, due to the lack of clean drinking water. So I was like, oh
Well,
my gosh, that's a crazy issue. It's a solvable issue. You love an issue
yeah.
that's solvable. And so I was really lending my voice to that. And then in 2011, when I had that, I had the artist, and then I had General Hospital. And so I was really kind of starting to be interviewed and gaining fame.
Mhm.
And I felt like there are so many celebrities that lend their voice to the world water crisis. So what was an
Mhm.
issue that needed sunlight? And I realized that child abuse is a huge pandemic in our country. It's an
That's
epidemic
right.
and a pandemic. And so
Yeah.
I really started diving into that. Before human trafficking was a term,
Mhm.
I was fighting against that and still
Yep.
am, because that's very related to foster care, as you know.
Yes.
And so I kind of was on a trajectory of like lending my voice toward child abuse, and then finding out that, hey, a lot of children that are abused are in foster care. And so
Right.
then I wanted to do it. My husband, of course, didn't want to do it, which I just want to say to any listener, if you've been interested in fostering and you're like, oh, I would love to do that, but my spouse or my partner is so uninterested in that, hold on to hope. That's kind of what I have found. And maybe you have found, Rachel. I don't know your story, but
Mhm.
it tends to be that 50% of the couple or the unit, isn't
Yes.
like gung ho into the idea. And so I told my husband, you're allowed to say no to foster care, but you are not allowed to say no to something when you don't know what you're saying no to. So first we
Mm.
have to take an orientation class. And of course, we went to the orientation class, and he realized that that absolutely was something that we needed to do. And then me, being the busy actress and producer, I was like, I don't know if I have time for this. So
Right.
that was our journey in. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things I wanna say. First of all, thank you for saying that about if you're in a couple that one person might not be as on board. My husband often says that he wouldn't have done it if it weren't for me sort of pushing it forward. And I was really like, when I decide something and I just kind of like, I want to do this. and I wouldn't have done it, obviously, if he didn't want to do it, but he if he was on his own or maybe with somebody who didn't feel that way, he may not have done that, and he would have missed out on, like, the best thing that ever happened to him and to us, which is our
Yeah.
2 children. So, I appreciate that, and that's not to say it's for everybody, but I agree with you about just taking the steps and finding out about it before you close your heart and your mind to it. So, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
the next thing I want to ask you about is I'm kind of curious just that when you were getting into the public eye, did your was it that your people were telling you you need to choose a like a something, or did you feel in your heart like I have a platform, I want to use it for something, or was it a combo?
What a great question. What a fun answer I'm about to
I'm
give
just
you.
like, yeah, so curious.
So I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So I'll just start at the most fun and horrifying answer first. So
Perfect.
I actually, when I decided to, the very first issue that I started to tackle was, now it's called child sexual exploitation material, CSEM. But at the time in 2011, it was just called child pornography. The reason you don't call it child pornography anymore, for anybody listening, is because pornography implies consent. Though I will tell you, having worked in, not in the porn industry, but in the field of advocating
Mhm.
for people who are in the porn industry, most of them
Mhm.
are actually victims. A lot of them
Yes.
don't know that they're victims, but that's it's just, I don't know that there really is a lot of consent in that business regardless,
Right.
but that is the reason why it's called CSEM. So
Yes.
now, because it's just, we want to make sure that it's extremely clear that children are not complicit and children
Right.
do not want to be
That's right.
raped and all these things.
That's right.
So that
It's the
was,
same. I appreciate you saying that
yeah,
because it's the same with prostitution, right? And all of
yeah,
that. It's like, yeah, no, if they're under 18, this is not a choice. This is trafficking.
this is
And it's
trafficking.
important for people to understand that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I wanted to speak about that because I was like, wow, nobody's talking about this.
Right.
And my publicist at the time, who I swiftly fired after, and I feel like the conspiracy theorist in me might know why she said this now, but at the time I had no idea. She was like, "You cannot talk about that as an actress in Hollywood. We do not talk about that. Pick anything
What?
else. Pick be 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 a spokesperson for the ASPCA." You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, I'm not an animal person. Love
Right.
animals, appreciate people that are animals, but I am a children person. I'm a people person.
Yeah.
And I think that animals are awesome. But like, if you are trying to compare dogs who need to be adopted to me, then severely abused and trafficked children,
Yeah.
who, by the way, at the time before the dark net came out. So what I mean by the dark net is like where these traffickers are working. Before, in around 2011, this is before Snapchat. This is, I maybe Instagram was just starting to come out. The internet had not really exploded. Social media had not really exploded. And so at the time, it was much easier to catch predators because you could find their IP address. And I
Mm.
was working with an organization that was what they were doing. They were finding
Mhm.
the IP address.
Mhm.
And in 1 in 3 cases, which is a high odd, 1 in 3 cases, they were finding the victims on the property and
Wow.
rescuing them out. And so I was like, I want to lend my voice to this. And of course, so this
Yes.
publicist was like, you cannot talk about that in Hollywood. Talk about
Uh,
anything else. I'm like, yeah, okay, bye. I'm not
yeah.
paying you to be my publicist. Like,
Right.
this needs sunlight. Other things don't need sunlight. Everybody knows there's pets that need to be adopted, you know? Like, they don't know that
Yes.
this is going on with children.
100%.
So I got involved in that. But how I got involved in that was not because somebody asked me, you need a platform now, because I already had a platform. I was already like touring and
Uh-huh.
lecturing college students and stuff. But for me, I'm just a very outspoken person of faith,
Mhm.
and I was praying about it, and I have always just felt like, I think that every person, whether they have celebrity or not, you have a
Mhm.
sphere of influence, whether it's your friends or whatever. You know, Rachel, you have this podcast. Like, you're using your podcast to spread awareness about this. Everybody
Mhm.
has a voice and everybody has an influence. So that has always been something that's very important to me. So when I realized that I was, catapulting into more of a, pseudo celebrity title, I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that I was using my platform wisely, and I was in prayer, and And the Lord said to me, it was one of the clearest moments he's ever spoke to me in my life. He goes, you need to research what's going on in your own neighborhood. And I was like, what do you mean? So it was this interesting journey that night. And I was on charitynavigator.org, which I really recommend. It's how you find out if charities are good. Because PSA, guys, anybody that's listening, not all charities are good. A lot of them are
Mhm.
scams. A lot of them, there's something called a 990 form. It's the form that 501c3s, which is the charity filing form, they need to fill that out for the IRS. And you can require any charity that wants you to donate to them. You can ask them for their 990. And I do, because I'm like, I want to know how much your employees are getting paid. And I
Mm.
also want to know how much, where's your money going? Like, is it
Right.
going toward the program? Is it going toward like private jets? Like, what are we doing with this
Right,
money? You
right,
know?
right. Yes. Agreed,
So
agreed.
I
Yep.
found out about that issue and got heavily involved. And then the
Yes.
publicist was like, maybe you should work with Child Help, which is the longest running and largest nonprofit against child abuse and neglect. They are 1-800 for a child, the child abuse phone hotline. They've
Mhm.
rescued over 12 million US children since they
Wow.
started 60 years ago. And they're just incredible. They're the real deal. So I became a celebrity ambassador for them. And then we became mentors. And then we wanted to foster our mentee, which did not happen, but she has a really great ending to her story. I'm still in touch, but that's how we started fostering.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so from there, because you were into it, you were doing all this activism, did you and then you felt like, listen, I want to actually open my heart, my home to do this for real, like to do a fostering slash possibly foster adopt. Is that the progression?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I always kind of wanted to foster because of my parents, but
Right.
my husband's progression was, you know, Child Help has, or they used to have a village in California, but that got shut down, large in part thanks to Paris Hilton, who, whatever. I agree with
Hmm.
her argument, but it was, you can't just try to shut down all organizations when one organization is bad. I don't believe in like blanket policies. And so, unfortunately, Child Help was the most successful program in the United States. Their
Wow.
California village got shut down. When I
Okay.
say village, what they had, and they still have one in Tennessee. Actually, I don't know if they have one in Tennessee. I know they have one in Virginia, which is my home state, and then they might still have one in Tennessee. But they do national advocacy work. But specifically, so you understand the parameters of this, they used to in California have these therapeutic cottages where children would live,
Mhm.
and these are the most, Child Help takes on the most severe cases. So you have like your Gabriel Hernandez who died, but had Gabriel not died, that's a very famous case.
Mhm.
You have children, no joke, that like are 9 years old and they don't know they're not a dog. They've lived in a crate their
Mm.
whole life. They've never been taught to speak. They don't know how to toilet themselves. They don't know how to eat. Like they don't know how to talk.
Mhm.
These are the children that sometimes often go to Child Help because
Okay.
it's basically the last stop that the government's like, we don't know what else to do with them,
Mhm.
and they can either go to a mental institution or they can go to Child Help, which actually is a mental institution, but it's in a therapeutic setting. So they
Mhm.
have like home moms, they get every form of therapy. I mean, they do occupational therapy, speech therapy, health and nutrition therapy, reading, they catch them up on their schooling. I mean, you
Yeah.
name the type of therapy. I didn't even know there were this many kinds of therapy. My point in saying this is that if a child lives at a child help village, now some of them, very rare. There, I want to preface that there's a small percent of children where their parents just don't know what to do, and they turn their children in for therapy because they're like, this child needs help that I
Uh-huh.
cannot give them.
Uh-huh.
That is not usually what child help is for, but that is
Okay.
available. So I don't want to blanket say every child that's ever been in a child help,
Right.
facility, because
Gotcha.
that's not what I'm about to say is not necessarily an across the board, but in general,
Mhm.
overwhelmingly so in general. If a child is at Child Help's therapeutic village, that child should never be reunified with their parent.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, if you're listening to this podcast, and I hope that you are, you know, the goal of foster care is not adoption. The goal of foster care is to put that child back with the family. The goal is called reunification.
Yep.
Split them apart, put them back together. That is the goal across the board, that you are going to always be parallel planning, they call it in the court system. So you have a goal, and there's a line. If you're watching on video, I'm holding my arm out. There's a line. The goal is reunify that child with the family. The parallel goal is adoption or permanent placement for that child so that they have stability. I would argue very heavily, very strongly that if a child lives at child help, he or she should never
Mhm.
be reunified with their parent. So there
Mhm.
was a child that we mentored, and she was facing reunification, which meant imminent death to her. Her mother had made it very clear to her that she would murder her the
Mm.
minute she got her back. She
Wow.
told her exactly how she was going to do it, you know. So she was really scared. And when she opened up, my husband was the one that we were driving back to LA, and he was like white knuckling the steering wheel. And he was like, when we get home, we are taking those foster care classes. So we got into foster care because of her, but we did not get into foster care to adopt, which is so funny because now I have 4 children. And it's just funny because I laugh because it's like, what an idiot I was going in thinking that, like, oh, you'll just love these children, give them back, you know. I'll go to Europe, I'll grieve, I'll go on a nice vacation and sleep again. And
Mhm.
then when my heart has healed, I'll open up my home and foster again. Now that is possible. I don't know about the Europe
Yeah.
vacation part, but like a lot of people just foster.
Right.
So my goal is not adoption. My goal is just to foster and and
Right.
and wrap myself around that whole family. Obviously, I'm extremely glad that we were able to adopt our 2 sons through foster care. When you adopt through foster care, there's one of 2 ways to do it. All kind of take the same route, but here's the 2 approaches. The first is you foster that child with the goal of reunification. And in 29% of cases, at least that was the statistic 4 years ago. So this is a 4 year
Mhm.
old statistic, but I imagine it hovers around the same rate. In roughly 29% of the cases, you have a child that gets what's called TPR, which stands for termination of parental rights. And that is when the court has exhausted the process of reunifying that child. Almost all 50 states have a reunification process that looks something like this. The child is placed into foster care. Hopefully, they live in a home. Hopefully, they live in a stable home. That's obviously not the case. There's a lot of, if you've ever heard about foster care, a common conception of it is that they're hellholes, foster homes, and a lot of them
Right.
are. Like, they're either amazing places or they're hellholes. So the
Mhm.
child is placed into foster care, and then he or she is going to start doing usually monitored visits, meaning a social worker, the foster parent, him or herself, or somebody is monitoring that visit, writing reports, making sure that the parent is showing up, isn't
Mhm.
high, isn't saying inappropriate things to the child, all this kind of business. Once that goes very well, then they're going to be glorified babysitters, the parent, and that child's going to spend some unmonitored visit, maybe 2 hours at a time. If that goes well, the next stage of reunification would be maybe the child's spending the weekend with that parent, maybe the child's doing an overnight. If that goes well, you keep progressing until you reunify. If that parent never makes progress and he or she is getting worse and worse and worse, is not doing their caseload, is back on drugs, is not showing up, all of these sort of things, then what will happen is after a series of usually in 6-month increments, the court will decide that that parent is no longer worthy of being a parent, and they will do something called termination of parental rights. It is not willy nilly. It's a very serious thing. We actually have a ton of parental rights in this country. And I just think even if you're not in foster care, you should know that as a parent, you have a lot of rights. So, moms and dads, I just want to say, like, speak up in your school board and be an active parent, because there's very little they can do to you if you're a parent. So you have these like abusive parents, and you can't even tell them they're not allowed to be parents. So we do
Mhm.
have a lot of parental rights, and I'm very grateful for that in this nation. But once termination of parental rights has happened, the next place in parallel planning would be adoption. If you do not want to adopt, you can just continue to foster that child. I think in all 50 states, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe in all 50 states, you get a stipend every month for foster care. That's true. But there's another program called the Adoption Assistance Program that still exists. So we still get a stipend for our kids, and it's amazing. We put it into an account for them. It's
Mhm.
earning interest they don't know about,
Sure.
fantastic.
Yep.
So grateful for that. They come with
Right.
health insurance. I am so grateful for that.
That's
I'm
right.
like, if any of you are going to crack your heads open, it better be the boys because it's
Yeah.
free,
Yeah. And
So,
and just in case the listeners don't know, she's talking about Medicare, right? Is it
yeah.
Medicare or Medicaid? I always get them confused.
I'm not sure either because they come with an insurance policy that is unsubsidized, but it's basically
Mhm.
like the boys get health insurance for free. Like, I do
Right,
not
until
pay
they're
for the
18.
18 or 24. It depends
Oh,
on the
okay.
state that you live in.
Okay. Yep.
I used to assume people didn't adopt because they couldn't afford to adopt,
Right.
but that's not actually true. I don't
Right.
really know why people don't adopt. That's a question I haven't through foster care. Private
Well,
adoption is a totally different thing.
I can tell you why. I mean,
Please
I
tell me.
think or I mean, I can't tell you. I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons, but I
Sure.
think fear is a huge part of it. I think that there
Mm,
is and the fears are multiple fears. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear that you don't know if you're going to be able to keep the child, so you put everything you have, your heart and your soul into it. And I had this fear going in, like terrible, terrible fear and of having my heart broken. And so I
sure.
think that that's a big one. And then I also think a lot of people are really afraid of, well, you don't know what you're going to get, which I think is ironic because even if you have biological children, you don't know,
Yes.
quote unquote, what you're going to get. But I think a lot of people are afraid of like drug exposure and
I'm
there's a
talking
lot of
about yeah, that's for sure. That's the
yeah,
reason people don't foster, but what I'm asking is, do you know why people don't adopt from foster? Like, if they
yes.
are already a foster parent.
Ah, gotcha, gotcha.
So what I'm
So
saying is there's a and the other path is there's adoption through foster care. So there are
yes.
kids that now, and this is when people wouldn't adopt from foster care sometimes because there are kids that already had TPR. So they've already had termination of parental rights.
Yes.
There's over 100,000 of them in the country, and they are available for adoption right now. You can go and adopt them. I do recommend that you foster them first for the exact reasons that Rachel just mentioned. But
Right.
what I'm saying, Rachel, is I don't understand why, if people have fostered that child for years,
Yes, I
was like their
agree.
first placement, and then the child gets TPR, what would stop those people from then adopting the child and giving the
Yeah.
child permanency? And that's I don't understand that that
I
that.
I don't either, and I think that it might be. I've heard some people say that they just didn't ever wanna be, like, parents forever. Like, they didn't want to
Oh,
and
yeah, that makes
I
sense.
actually it's funny because I interviewed somebody, recently who was saying they went into it, and they wanted to just emergency foster care. Like, they didn't want
Yeah,
to they're like, "I don't ever wanna be a full-time parent." But then
that was me.
they fell in love and
Yeah,
that was it, and now they're a family, so, yeah, but I do think that maybe some people feel like, "Oh, I don't necessarily wanna do this forever, I just wanna do it,
that's yeah,
for
I guess that
now."
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah,
But
good. Well, then now I
I
have
personally couldn't do that, you obviously couldn't do that,
yeah, I
yeah.
couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. But, listen, it would be better though to keep that child and give that child permanency until he or she aged out at least.
Mhm,
So I would
mhm,
say that if you don't want to adopt, like just keep fostering that. Like we would appreciate that because every time a child switches homes, they experience trauma.
yes.
So yeah.
Yes. And I'm also curious, are you involved at all with children who are aging out of the system? Do you know much about that? Because that's something that just really breaks my heart. If they never get adopted, they go through the whole entire system. And then what happens is it 18 or is it 21 now that they stop being sort of cared for?
It depends on the
Um,
state.
hmm
So state by state, and I believe possibly even county by county, have different laws that dictate whether it's 18 or 21.
Okay.
Traditionally, a child is going to age out of foster care at 18.
Okay.
And I think I could be very wrong. I slightly recall that in order for 21 to be in play, it has to be because a foster parent agrees to continue to foster them till 21, in which case the government will make an exception saying we will continue the stipend and the insurance until that kid is 21. But that is
Okay.
probably rare and far between. So in
hmm
general, we're looking at 18 here, which, listen, I was an incredibly responsible 18-year-old. I did my own laundry. I knew how to cook. I drove. I was just like the sober friend that drove everybody. Like I
hmm
could have been a mom at 18. No, like, well, problem because being a mom is hard, but I could have done it, like I was
Right.
extremely responsible 18-year-old.
Yes.
And at the same time, I would not have wanted to have been on my own at 18.
Right.
That's insane.
It's
Like
crazy.
it's an insane idea.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm extremely involved and that is very much where my heart is. When my kids are older, I do plan on being much more actively in my own home fostering teens that are aging out of foster care. They call them
Uh-huh.
TAYs, transitional aged youth. In the meantime, my husband and I did bring in a TAY during the pandemic, which was hilarious. It was just an experience because she uh, she was gonna face homelessness if she didn't find a home, and I met her right before the pandemic started. Of course, none of us knew, you know?
Mhm.
And so it was like she moved in, and like a week later, it was like 2 weeks to stop the spread. So it was a pretty rude awakening for all of us to be like, "Hey, family team meeting, like, what kind of toilet paper do you like?" You know? Family team meeting, all the adults might have to like start, giving up a meal because we have no idea. Like, it was so funny. But we ended up not fostering her, but opening our home to this girl named Shanae. She was amazing. And I learned a lot from her. But so I have had it to transition age youth in my home.
Mhm.
It was not officially foster care because she aged out, and we just met her at like a gala event basically.
Mhm.
And she was on a panel, and she was like facing homelessness, and my
Mm.
husband turned to me and was like, "We have to do something." And I was so excited because I'm like you, Rachel. Like, once I make up my mind,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. But my
Yeah.
husband's definitely the emergency brake because I'm like pedal to the metal. And so when he said he wanted to help her, that was an incredible experience. That was my first experience working with transition age youth, personally. And then
Mhm.
I also helped open and start the Tulsa Girls Home, which is thriving in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm actually going out there tomorrow, and they are doing just the
Yes, I
most
wanna
like
hear.
life
Tell me
changing
all
work.
about it. Tell me about that organization and your involvement in it.
It's so amazing. First of all, the CEO, the woman who started it and founded it, has become one of my best friends over the years. But fun story, I met her on Instagram. And I have to tell you the story of how we met 'cause it's so magical. So it was 2018. I know because it was the year we got Jeffrey, my son Jeffrey. And I was, you know, as a celebrity, I think everybody has to have like Instagram. But I really don't like social media. And I
Mhm.
was having one of those social media burnouts where I was like, I hate this. I would never do this. It feels very vapid. It feels very like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like,
Mhm.
ugh, I just hated it. But I knew I needed to have it. So I was taking this Instagram course on like basically how to like survive Instagram. And so I remember this girl that I was taking the course from said, you got to find your tribe on Instagram. So I was like, fine, if I'm going to stay on this hellhole of social media, then I am going to find like-minded foster moms because I can't like keep doing this life the same way. I don't care about makeup or
Yeah,
hair or
right.
like diet. Like I don't care. I don't care. And thank God for my husband. I'm an actress because I don't know how savage I would look if I was not on camera. I mean, like, I just don't care about that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I care about making an impact and helping people. So I'm scrolling like, I don't know, half hour scrolling with my thumb like we do. I don't remember what they call it, like death scrolling. I'm death scrolling. That's like a term
Doom
kids use these
scrolling,
days.
yeah.
Doom scrolling, doom
Yeah.
scrolling. The hashtag foster love, hashtag foster love.
Mhm.
I don't know how many posts I had just kept doom scrolling, like rapid fire. And I saw this photo, and it wasn't even that special, and I stopped on it. I rolled back up because like my brain registered it after I saw it. I clicked on the profile as my friend now my one of my best friends, Brittany. And she was just holding this infant, looking at this infant. And I was like, oh, okay, she's a foster mom. Cool. And then it said founder of Project Orphans. And I was like, cool, what is this? So I went down the website of projectorphans.org, found out all about this amazing system that she's created in Uganda, where as like a 19 to 22-year-old girl, this girl is like
Wow.
fireworks. She is like 10 years younger than me. I'm 40. She's like 30 years old, and she runs foster care now in
Oh,
Uganda.
that's
I mean, it's
amazing.
absolutely incredible. And it was because she went in and she was like, wait, you don't actually have an orphan crisis. What you have in Uganda and Africa, most of the time, is that you have these parents who can't afford to have their kids. And so they prefer that, like, wealthy people just go and adopt their kids, or they turn them into like an orphanage because they're like,
Mhm.
I don't have the ability to
Mhm.
shelter, clothe, and feed my children. So I'll just give you my child because I care about my child so much, that I would rather my child like have a chance at life. Brittany's like, that's stupid. Why don't instead we like train these parents to have jobs? We'll build a school for the kids. We'll
Mhm.
create a daycare. We'll create a medical center, blah, 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 blah. Why don't we just get this community together and, support the village? And so that's what they do. And so I met her. This is the funniest way. I DM'd her. I'm on Instagram. I DM her and I'm like, hey, I know you're not going to maybe believe it, but this is Jen Lilley. You can check my profile. Like I'm a verified check. I'm from Hallmark Channel and Days of Our
Yeah.
Lives. And I'm a foster mom. And like I found you on here and I see that you live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'm actually about to go do a movie in August. And in Guthrie, Oklahoma, like which is like Oklahoma City. And I said, and I know exactly like this was I know verbatim, like, and I never remember dates because my mom's birthday. I said, I have one day free on Sunday, August 19th. I'm going to be in Tulsa because there's a church where I want to visit in Tulsa. And I know this is like crazy, but seriously, like, please go check out who I am. I would love to take you to coffee. Like, I just want to meet another foster mom. If I can help you with Project Orphans or anything, like, I
Aw.
would just be happy to lend my voice. I just really want to get to know you. She never checks her DMs,
Oh,
especially from
no.
strangers, right? There's like
Uh-huh.
a different
Yes.
profile.
That's right. Yep.
She happens to check the message right as it came in. And
Wow.
I almost want to say, like, no S, like, no
Yeah.
crap. She never watches Hallmark Channel. Never. Like, she thinks they're the cheesiest movies because they are, and we love them for it. She was home sick with the flu, and she was watching my movie for the very first time. She was watching Hallmark Channel. She was watching me.
What?
She checks the DM. She says to her husband, I just got a DM from this chick. And he's
Oh
like,
my
no
god.
way. It's probably like AI, something creepy, like you're being spammed.
Right.
She checks her calendar. She's got all these things Uganda. She's going to be back and forth from Uganda. She also has 4 children. She runs like marketing for all these other companies at the time. And the only free date she had was Sunday, August 19th. And she's like, I want
Wow.
to go have coffee with this girl. And her husband's like, you're going to get murdered. And my husband's like, you're going to get murdered. So we were like, we'll
Yeah.
meet in a public place. It'll be fine. And so we met, shared our hearts, shared our visions for what we wanted to do for the United States. I was like, I want to create the same thing that you're doing in
Mhm.
Uganda, in the United States.
Yes.
And she's like, no, I will never work with the US. You think Uganda's corrupt? Wait till you work with the United States. Like, I will not do it.
Wow.
She's like a foster parent as well. And I'm like, okay. So for years, I was like, I'm not doing it unless you're doing it because you're the only person I know that is like anointed for that job. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know how you go into Uganda as
Oh
like a
god.
young girl
Yeah.
who's not even graduated college
Right.
and do what you've done. You have to be the one. You're the one. You're Moses. I'll be your Miriam. I'll be your Aaron. I will hold up the staff with you, sister, but you are the anointed one that's got to go in and like set these people
Wow.
free. So she's like, no, 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 no. It's never going to happen. Never going to happen for years. Of course, we become friends. And then, so then during the pandemic, I like we're all 2 weeks to stop the spread. I was releasing my music album, and 100% of my music profits goes toward charity, which is why I never signed with a major record label. Had an amazing opportunity to sign with a major record label, and I was like, no, mine's going to go toward charity. And actually, like I realized what the touring schedule was. I was like, I want to stay married with kids, so this is
Mhm.
not like I can't do that life. I can't balance it.
Right. Right.
So I decided to release my album independently, and I decided to do it through this worldwide talent contest that I hosted and created called Voices That Give, where
Mm.
people could be, win a walk-on role in one of my movies, and they could da 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 do all these cool things.
Yeah.
And 100% of the profits was going to go toward building this village in the United States. And so the project did great, and we didn't make a profit, but I had set aside. This is so crazy. I had set aside. I created it's called a donor advised fund, where you basically can put your money into a charitable fund, where it has to go to a charity, but like you just until you set it aside, so that's
Mhm.
a charitable donation. But I can never, no longer ever spend it. It has
Okay.
to go to a
Gotcha.
501(c)(3). Okay, that's
Yep,
what a
yep.
charitable advised fund is.
Okay.
I put in $40,200 into that
Mhm.
account. This is 2020.
Mhm.
Years go by. Well, I guess it was 2021, September of 2021. In fact, it was the very first week of September 2021, probably like September 4th.
Okay.
I'm in Canada doing my first movie for Great American Family. I'm quarantined, and I'm in quarantine, and I get this call, and it's like all these crazy people, like military leaders. I mean, people that have no business calling me. We're on like this massive conference call. All these
Wow.
like very famous leaders. I don't even know
Mhm.
how I got roped into this call. And they're like, "Hey, we have all these Syrian refugees." This is when Syria, the issue with Syria was going
Uh-huh.
on.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, "We have all these Syrian refugees going on. Like we've gotten your number. You're going to be one of the people on the team that's going to like bring these Syrian refugee babies in." And so I'm like, I'll help you any way that I can. I get off the phone. Like prostrate on the ground. I'm like bawling my eyes out before the Lord. And when I'm in quarantine, I would like fast and pray. And so I said to the Lord, Lord, I have this $40,000 set aside.
Mhm.
Do you want me to give it to the Syrian babies? Like, this is so upsetting. And he said, no, it's for the neighborhood. It's for like your neighborhood model, like what she's going to do in the United States.
Mhm.
And I remember kind of almost yelling at him. I was like, what neighborhood model? Like, it's
Yeah.
never going to happen. Brittany told me it's never going to happen. And he's like, do you trust me? And I'm like, yes, but like, fine. And he goes, I will take care of these babies. But that money is set
Oh.
aside for this neighborhood. And I'm like, fine. So I go to bed. The next day, Brittany calls me. She FaceTimes me and she's like, if you ever meet Brittany, you got to interview her. She's like the
Okay.
funniest, she's the sassiest, most hilarious, amazing person you've ever met in your life. She always gets mad at me when I'm with her because I just start crying because I'm like, I can't believe we get to be friends. Like she's so
Aw.
amazing.
That
I'm so
yeah, I really
honored to
would
be
love
her
to meet
friend.
her.
I mean, she is just the most amazing person you've ever met. She calls me, she's FaceTiming me, she's mad. And she's like mad, but like righteously angry. She's like, all right, she's FaceTiming me. She's like, I'm gonna do your stupid neighborhood model. And I don't know how I'm gonna do it. She goes, but the Lord told me last night, like, all right, Brittany, like we're doing this. And she goes,
What?
and I yelled at him last night. And she goes, I need $40,000. I
Get
need
out of here.
$40,000 to buy this house. How am I supposed to do it? And he said to her, I have 40,000 set aside that you don't know about. And she goes, so if you know anybody that has $40,000. Meanwhile, I'm just bawling my eyes out.
What?
I said, are you serious right now? I said, I'm going to get on the computer right now. I emailed my financial advisor. I was like, what email do you want me? Like Brittany at projectorphans.org. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm writing the email. She's on the phone. I was like, hey, this is like, here's Brittany. Brittany meet Doug. Doug meet Brittany. We're going to transfer all that money is going to her. However she says
Wow.
it, it's going to her, thing. And she goes, I said, well, actually, it's $40,200. And she was like, actually, I need 40,200
Get out of here.
because she had just looked at a house and that was the first house that we bought.
What?
So that's how the Tulsa Girls Home came about.
Oh, that's
It was totally a God
amazing.
thing, and he's been behind it.
Wow.
And now we have expanded. We have another house, and we're building townhomes right now for youth aging out of foster
Wow.
care. And so they have to like hold a job. I mean, they do financial responsibility courses.
Mhm.
They hold a job. They're drug free. I mean, but
Mhm.
it's so sad because the work that we're doing at Tulsa Girls Home, and it's really Brittany. Like, I don't live in Tulsa, so I just want to like show honor where honor is due. It's her and her
Mhm.
team. I'm so honored to be part of it. I'm so honored
Mhm.
to financially partner with them because
Yeah.
it's like these girls leave the home and they beg to come back. And
Mhm.
I don't know a group home in the United States where people beg to come back. Like, that is not the
Mhm.
goal. A
Mhm.
group home is like, it's so much worse than like a family situation where you have like a family unit. That is what your goal is for these children. But when you run a group home so well that it feels more like a stable family than
Mhm.
stable families, then you're doing it right. And that is why I was like, I'm not doing this. And I told the Lord that I was like, I'm not doing this without Brittany. And she told me she's never going to do it. So I don't know what your plan is, but she's the only person I would ever partner with because she has so much integrity and
Wow. That's
it's just
nuts.
truly amazing. So it's called TulsaGirlsHome.com org. It's an
Dot
org. It's
.org.
a
Okay. Yep.
.org. It's a 501(c)(3), and
Sure.
it's just incredible. So
And I'll put the link for sure in the show notes, and, that's an incredible, incredible story. It really sounds like your faith leads you, obviously,
yeah,
and, I think do you think that that's a necessary ingredient for this kind of work? Or do you
you
think it's
know,
just a helpful ingredient for this kind of work?
I think it's pivotal, but I know there
Mhm.
are people that do it without faith, and my
Mhm.
thing is like I don't know how they do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question. Getting back to your story with your children, so how old are your kids now? You said you have 4.
hmm
You
And they're
adopted 2.
yes, and you
Okay.
might start hearing them in the background. They're
Okay.
two, they're 2, 5, 6, and 8.
2, 5, 6, and 8. Wow.
hmm
That's a fun household. That's a boisterous household. Oh my
It's a
god.
very loud household. Yes.
Wow. And are the 2 that you adopted, are they, siblings? Like, are they related or no?
Yes, same
Okay.
biological mom.
Okay. Okay. And are you in touch with the biological mom still? Like, do you have a
Yes.
relationship with her? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I know that's not possible for everybody, but I think it's just my heart. My heart is
Yeah.
to, cheerlead her to make better choices and,
Yeah.
let her know that this all turned out how it's supposed to turn out. And that
Yep.
doesn't mean that like she's gonna be never be allowed to be a mom ever again. Like she'll be a great mom one day if she can get it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, sometimes the other like the biological mom doesn't want that relationship or can't stand to have that relationship.
The boys don't have a relationship with her. They know about
Okay.
her and I've told her, love you. They know about you.
Yeah.
But I just know a lot of studies I've read, a lot of people I've talked to personally. I want them to be that to be their choice
Mhm.
when they're
Mhm.
adults and preferably when they're not teenagers. So I told her, I was like, and because I know my children, Jeff will want a relationship and Caden will not. And I've told her
Mm.
that too. Like, just brace your heart, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And are they the 6 and 8-year-olds?
hmm
The 6 and 8-year-olds. So, okay, so did you intend to have biological children also, or how did that happen?
No, my husband and I never wanted to be parents,
You didn't wanna be parents at
Like we were
all.
like, "Oh, we'll
Wow.
foster, we'll do our part, we'll
Right.
foster. We'll love these kids back and we'll love their families back and then, we'll go through our grieving and move on, go
Go
to
to
Europe,
Europe
have
and
a
then
yeah,
yeah.
go to Europe and have fun, and then do it again sometime."
Right.
So, once we realized that we were adopting Caden and we were so, so glad. I mean,
Mhm.
like foster care is the most incredible transformative experience. I'm sure you agree, Rachel. I mean, you have a podcast
Absolutely.
about it,
Yep.
but it's also not for the faint of heart.
Correct.
And yeah, and so it's such an honor and relief to me that we were able to adopt our sons because the reality is like they would not be alive right now had we
Mhm.
not been able to adopt them. There's just no
Mhm.
way they would have survived.
Mhm.
So it's not lost on me. But once we realized that we were definitely adopting Caden and we're so relieved about it, I literally was. I'm extremely A type, which is why I'm like getting back into producing because I'm like, okay, now that I've like established myself as an actress, I can let people know how nerdily organized I am
Yes.
behind closed doors. And I'm
I
like
love it.
in bed and I'm on my phone and I'm looking at my like ovulation app. And I told my husband, I was like, if we have sex right now, we
Mhm.
will probably get pregnant with a girl. Because there's this whole like, I can't remember what the guy's name is, Minor or something like.
Okay.
There's some doctor where you can like basically know like at conception like if you're gonna have a girl or a boy. There's like a whole theory. So it's like
Oh.
if we and I was looking at my filming schedule for the next like 4 months, and I was like, we're gonna be in the boy window for the next 4 months. So I know it was a little earlier than we were planning, but if we have sex right now, we'll probably get pregnant with a girl. And so we did, and we got pregnant right
Wow.
out the gate. So which I also want to recognize. I know that is not a lot of people's journey, but I knew I was so fertile. I was like on 5 forms of birth control at all times, and until we
Wow.
decided to have a.
Right.
So we got pregnant with Julie before when we were still just fostering, but we knew Kaden
Okay.
was going to be adopted.
Mhm.
So we knew we were in for this parenting journey for life anyway.
Right.
And then we knew. I'm like, when was Julie born? Okay, we had Jeff. Yeah, we already had Jeff. Our son Jeff was already in our home. Yeah, and so then we just knew
Mhm.
that if Caden was gonna get adopted, it was probably likely that we would adopt Jeff too, but we knew we were gonna be
Right.
parents, so and then my daughter, Jackie, who's 2, it was a major surprise. She's a
Okay.
blessing, but she was
Right.
definitely a surprise that we
Yep.
didn't know we needed, so,
Oh, that's
yeah.
so sweet. I love it. I love
Yes.
hearing how it all ends up working out.
Yeah.
So how do you manage being an actress, especially in the fostering when there's so many meetings and appointments and things you have to do, but you're on location for this movie and then
Yeah.
how did you manage that? Wait, is your
Um,
husband's like does he work from home or how did you yeah, I'm just curious how you put that together.
great questions.
Yeah.
So at the time, he was working night shift for Frito-Lay.
Okay.
So he would work night shift, and then he was home a lot during the day. Now he had to sleep, but we kind of were able to tag team. And then we did daycare,
Mhm.
like the
Sure.
kids have always kind of been in
Yep.
daycare.
Yep.
Ones that I really like and approve. A
Yep.
lot of them, well, actually, the ones that the boys did was home care. So it was like a woman who was a grandmother who we love, who like made all of their food and like loved on them. And so they did daycare during the day,
Mhm.
so that my husband could rest. But then we did family dinner. But when I would go on location, um, trying to remember fully how we did it. Oh, my parents would like fly out. A lot of
Mhm.
times my
Okay.
parents would fly out. We would get help
Yep.
and then we would just kind of just do it because
Gotcha.
filming takes place. I did leave days of our lives so that I could foster and be a parent. So I was no longer like on a consistent filming basis, so
Uh-huh.
that I could balance it.
And that was your choice that you were just like, "I
Yeah.
can't do
Y-
this," and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I loved Days. It's still my favorite character I've ever played was Teresa Donovan,
Mhm.
but um, it's different than being on a primetime show because a primetime show, you're still only shooting like max 22 episodes a year, which sounds like a lot, but
Mhm.
you're looking at like 22 to 24 weeks, which in a year that's like 6 months.
Mhm.
It's still a lot, but it's not an episode every day. That's what you shoot,
Right.
on a soap. And
With the soap, yeah.
so it's just a lot. I just knew I couldn't do both.
Right.
So yeah, this was my choice.
Oh,
Um,
that's really great.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And do your kids ever get to come with you on location, or how does that
No,
work?
no, they
No?
don't.
Is it too, like, that would just be like a shit show?
Yeah, it is. It's like too crazy because
Yeah.
when you shoot like these Christmas movies or these movies that I do, you're looking at like 2 to 3 weeks of filming, and you are working between 12 to 16 hours a day. Plus, you have to
Wow.
memorize.
Yep.
Plus, you have to shower and show up with your hair clean the next morning. So you're
Right.
looking at about 16-hour days on average. So you really don't have time to be a mom, and you are having to like throw yourself into memorizing and being on set. And
Yep.
there's a whole thing of like being on set and not just knowing your lines. You have to know like where the cameras are. You have to know your
Sure.
lighting, your mark. And you want to be like present for everybody. So my kids do not come to set. There have been times where they could have,
Uh-huh.
but one thing I actually very much appreciate, I hate it and appreciate it about my husband at the same time, is that he loves people. I mean, we took in like a youth that was going to age out. Like he's a
Yeah.
very compassionate person,
Mhm.
but he is also a recluse. Like that man is like his dream day is just being home. Like we went to Turks and Caicos this summer and it was not cheap with Brittany and her family. I was like, all
Uh-huh.
right, we're going to go with Brittany and her kids, my kids. Her kids are
Yeah.
a little bit older. We'll go on a tropical vacation with our best friends. their,
Yes.
their kids will play with our kids. This will be great. My husband hated it. I left him home for 2 days. I
Oh.
was like, don't even come. Brittany and I will handle the kids at the beach. Like
Right.
he loves being home. So
Yep.
he doesn't want to be on set either. And the kids would hate it because I'm gone 16 hours and
Right.
they got
Yeah.
nothing to do. Like he's not going to go take them to the park. He's going to be
Right.
like, we're sitting inside.
Oh, that's funny. And I'm sure that even though you miss them, I'm sure that it also feels really good in a way to also be out and like you have your career and you
Oh my
have
gosh.
I mean,
This
yeah.
is the secret to getting it all done. But like I have 2 books coming out next year and
Oh
people are
my
like,
God.
how are you having time to write? And I'm like, when I'm filming, I have like weekends. Like I drink coffee and
Yes.
I just write for 20 hours,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, I have a voiceover and audiobook career, and I
Amazing.
would be I love my career. I love my kids, and I love being a mom, but I
Yeah.
also really love to work.
Me too.
So, yeah,
I love
yeah,
it.
it's good to be able to find a way to do that. Tell me about Christmas is Not Canceled and or what you're doing now, instead.
Of course. Thanks so much for
Yes.
asking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because Christmas is coming up.
Sister, it is. Um, so I have so many trees up already, and I'm buying more. I love Christmas. My older brother was making fun of me today. He was like, "You and mom," like, and I was like, "It's also because I'm in 1,000 Christmas movies," and I'm like, inspired by the decor on
Yes.
set all the time.
Wait,
I'm like,
I have to ask,
yeah.
were you a Christmas person before that, or is it because you were in all these movies? And by the way, I have friends who are like insane Hallmark people. My
Yeah,
old babysitter, my first nanny, is like, that's all she watches, and she is gonna die that you're on this show. And one of my best friends too is like, she just loves, loves, loves Hallmark. So
there's
I think yeah, it's so adorable. Like it makes me
it's so
like
adorable. Like
it's
it's such
so
a fun
adorable.
thing to be
Yep,
part of. So I'm really
yep.
happy to be part of it, and I just love the fans. There's so many times where people are like, people judge Christmas movies and stuff, right? Like very serious actors,
Oh.
And I'm like, and the industry sometimes does, but that they're coming up in the ranks. And the thing with the Christmas movies is when I go to these conventions like Christmas Con, I cannot tell you how many people in my lines, because it's like Comic Con, there's like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people in your lines. I can't tell you what the percentage, the overwhelming majority of people will say, your movie, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
I lost my dad, or I lost my mom, or I lost my sister, or something just like
Yes.
unbelievably devastating, or they got a
Oh.
cancer diagnosis or something, and they're like, "It was the worst holiday season of my life, and the only 90 minutes that I didn't cry was when I was watching your movie." And I'm
Oh.
like, "I will do 1,000 of the I will do these till they stop me because I'm just too old," you know?
Oh, that's
Oh my gosh, so
beautiful.
I do love being in them. I was always a Christmas person, but I get you're on these like magical sets where everything looks perfect. And I was telling my husband
Yes.
today, I was like, sometimes he's like, oh God. I'm like, sometimes they have like wreaths on every cabinet in the kitchen. Like we could buy, and he's like, oh my God. Like so it has made me overboard.
Right.
Um, okay, what was the
Oh,
question?
but the
I
the
can't
question is about the Let's just talk about Christmas.
Christmas
Christmas
is
is
not
not
canceled.
canceled. Yes.
Okay. So after I did Voices That Give, which raised the money for Tulsa Girls Home,
Mhm.
that fall, the CDC, as you remember in the pandemic, we all lived through it. They were canceling everything. I mean, culture, people were
Yeah.
getting canceled, flights were getting canceled, holidays were getting canceled, everybody's getting canceled.
Yes.
And so my business partner and I at the time she was just a friend at the time. We were on the phone just talking. Oh my gosh, did you see the CDC canceled Thanksgiving? And it was like, if you remember, I don't know what it was like, but in California, it was like, it's open, it's closed, it's open, it's closed, it's canceled,
Mhm.
it's not canceled. We were like, oh my gosh, like what? God, Lord, okay, Thanksgiving's canceled again. So we made the joke to each other, well, they better not cancel Christmas. And then I was like, ha ha ha. And I bought the website, Christmas is not canceled.com.
Uh-huh.
And about 30 seconds later, we had this very sobering thought that, like, oh my gosh, though all these parents who have put on a brave face like this whole year are not going to be able to buy Christmas gifts for these kids. And then these kids are going to think that they're bad kids.
Yeah.
They're going to think they're on Santa's naughty list. They're not going to
Yeah,
have
right.
presents. And so, what are
Right.
we going to do about it? So,
Mhm.
we created this amazing campaign. It was supposed to be a one time campaign. It was called Christmas is Not Canceled. We partnered with Toys for Tots, an amazing organization, great 990, and
Mhm.
we raised 10,380 toys through that with them. The fans
Wow.
rallied. We gave the fans like dream Christmas experiences,
Mhm.
and after that first campaign, we ended up starting a company that ran for 3.5 years that was called Christmas is Not Canceled.
Mhm.
And in the time of its existence, we just shut it down this year. It was a very profitable business. It was a very wonderful business, but it was taking over our lives. And there was just a lot going on behind closed doors. We had like a competitor that lived and died to make sure we didn't exist. That was very disappointing.
Ooh. Hmm.
Took all of our sponsors. I mean, like we had like a real life Grinch situation happening. And
Wow.
we just kept trying to kind of rally and regroup and be like, okay, maybe we'll pivot the company this way. Maybe we'll do it this way. And it was kind of like we just kept hitting closed doors.
Mhm.
And so I think that when you keep rallying and you keep hitting closed doors, sometimes that's a sign that like it's had its season. So we were like, you know
Right.
what? Let's end on a high. It started as a one-time campaign, and in the end, we ended up giving. We had a over $3.2 million impact. We helped almost a
Wow.
100,000 families have Christmas, and then in the summers we would do backpacks filled with school supplies for children in foster care. So that was all good and great. It was sad, that it had to end, but it was so like we ended on a high. Like we ended on this great note of like, let's
Mhm.
be so proud of what we've accomplished together.
Yep.
I thought I was done with that. And then what happened was, and I am, whatever. I thought I was just going to take a break, slow down for
Right.
a second. And then I started producing films again, and I'm in these production meetings. And I was like, all right, tell me how films are financed. And I'm in these two production meetings, and I was like, well, this is the stupidest, most fiscally irresponsible thing. Again, like I said, very organized. And I'm like, show me your 990. Now, a film is not a nonprofit, they don't have a 990.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, as a human, I am incredibly militant on how you're spending your money.
Mhm.
I budget, I stick to my budget. And if you can freaking save money, if there's a coupon for it, I don't care how much money I'm making.
Mhm.
Why not use the freaking coupon, you ding dong? You know what I mean? Like there's a better way to do this. So I'm sitting in these meetings and I was like, I bet I could fundraise for a film better. And I was like, how fun would it be if you gave fans like your friends, the opportunity to be in my next Christmas movie
Oh,
or to
wow.
be in the movies that they love.
Great idea.
Support the film. It benefits charity at the same time. We always
Yep.
partner with a charity. 10%
Mhm.
of every package goes back to an awesome charity whose 990 has been heavily investigated. you know
Yep.
and we could give fans the opportunity to not only be in the movie, like they can be producers, they can get their name in the credits, they can walk the red carpet with me, they can get a speaking role,
Wow.
they could do all these fun things. They support the independent filmmakers, and at the same time they're benefiting charity, and at the same time not only can they guarantee themselves a spot in one of my movies or whatever movie we're going to end up supporting through this company. It's
Mhm.
called Raise the Reel, REEL, like a reel on Instagram or
Yes.
Facebook.
Yep.
Raisethereal.com. Not only does it like give fans these crazy behind the scenes like experiences, helps charity, helps the filmmakers, but also every single person who supports the cause gets entered to win. For this one, gets entered to win a walk-on role in my movie with a close-up, the VIP experience. We're going to fly them out, we're going to put them up in luxury,
Wow.
situation. They also can win the Christmas tree and the garland and the wreath and the ornaments and the Christmas dinner and
Oh my
everything
god.
you see in the movie. So it's called Raise the Real
Okay.
.com. And then so then we have running a campaign called My Christmas Movie Moment. And
Wow.
it's for a movie called
Isel, I hope you're listening to this. You gotta you gotta apply to be in this. That's incredible. And
Yeah.
how do people do you make a donation and then you're
Yeah, they
submitted
can.
into the contest?
Yeah, so well,
Yeah.
they can buy their way in. They can just
Oh,
buy it.
okay.
They can
Gotcha.
straight up be like, "I'm coming to set, Jen Lilley," and I'll be like,
Gotcha.
"I'll see you there. I'm gonna have a hot chocolate bar. I'm gonna give them the VIP experience on set,
Right.
rolling out the actual red carpet. I already bought a red carpet on Amazon. I'm gonna roll out. I think it's so fun. They get the autograph script. They get everything that comes in the package. That is
Oh, that's
guaranteed.
so
And
fun.
then they
Okay.
also get entered to win a prize.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
like, if somebody buys the package where they can get a close up, which is a
Yes.
package, and then they win the grand prize that includes a close up, what they can do is they can gift that to a friend.
Got it.
They can
Got it.
bring a plus one, and they
That's
both get close
brilliant.
ups.
I
Yeah,
love
thanks.
this. Yeah, I really
Mhm.
love it, and I love talking to you. It's, like, so fun and so easy.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think incidentally that you're going to be I mean, you already are, but producing, like, yeah, no problem. Like, I see a big, huge, long career for you in that way, in
Thank
that
you. I hope
regard.
so.
Yeah. I mean,
Thanks.
come on. Yeah. You got it all, kid.
Thanks.
Listen, thank you so much for coming on today. It's wonderful to talk to you. Let's leave the listeners with maybe one or two pieces of advice if they're interested, if they're thinking about fostering to adopt or fostering, and they're not sure they're on the fence because that's a lot of my listeners. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I would say you don't know what you're saying no to. So
Hmm.
make sure you take an orientation class. But then I would also say, like, sister, brother, take the cape off. This is what one of my social workers said. Like, nobody's asking you to be a superhero. You have been created on purpose and for a purpose for this exact moment in time. And you have a special set of giftings that only you has. And so you can just first, before you take on the heavy load of opening your home, look at practical ways that you can get involved now. Are you a hairdresser? These girls, especially these teen girls in foster care, they've never had their hair cut. They've never had their hair done. They don't get to go to the homecoming and prom dances looking pretty. Is there a time at homecoming or prom, especially, where you can say, you know what, from this hour to this hour at my salon, I'm going to open it up for girls or boys if they need a haircut or whatever
Hmm.
they want to do.
Hmm.
I have a heart for the girls, but
Hmm.
can you do their hair? Are you a
Hmm.
mechanic? Do you change oil? Can you do free oil changes for like a foster parent? Because I will tell you, being a foster parent, Rachel, like it's hard, and
Yeah.
just to be acknowledged, it's like what will keep you in the game. So
Right.
just look at what you already have and then apply it to this world.
I love that. What a great piece of advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to say goodbye. You're going to stick around for a minute. And
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.